Hello everyone, welcome back. In today's video, we've got our fourth season preview video of the 2025-2026 season. We've done a couple in the past a little while. We're doing our first one involving Pacific Division teams. Today we're looking at the Vegas Golden Knights and San Jose Sharks, how they do during the 2024-2025 season, how they do this past off season, and how are they heading going up to the next season in 2025-2026. We'll get to all the updates coming up right now. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here at the End-to-End Hockey channel. Now before we get started, don't forget to like this video and leave a comment in the comment section below. Thank you for all of your support. I would never be able to do this without all of you guys. So if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below, don't forget to comment, stay tuned for more videos coming out in the very near future. And also, just a little while ago on August 17th, it was the 3-year mark of my YouTube channel. We've been on YouTube for the last 3 seasons. If you haven't already, please subscribe. I really appreciate it. I'm taking this video as of August 18th. So it was yesterday as the recording of this video. That was the 3-year mark of my channel. So on top of that, I'm doing a season preview video with one of my favorite teams. And on top of that, I'm also going to do a skit later today talking about some very interesting things with Toronto and Vegas. So stay tuned for that. These videos will probably wind up coming out on YouTube Tuesday or Wednesday. So stay tuned for those. But in today's video, we've got a season preview video, Vegas and San Jose today. So as per usual, we'll start off by looking at both teams' seasons, how they just did this past year, look at their off seasons, and look forward to the upcoming season. So we'll start with the Vegas Golden Knights. This past year was a very interesting season for Vegas. Regular season wise, one of the best teams in the entire NHL. They finished with a 50-22-10 record for 110 points. Best record in the Pacific Division, second best record in the Western Conference, third best record in the entire league. They were a top 3 team in the NHL. They were a great team this past year. In the Pacific Division, again, I think that's 3 or 4 years in their existence, which is now 8 seasons that the Vegas Golden Knights won the Pacific Division. Like, their success has been insane for the Golden Knights. They scored 274 goals for last year and gave up 214. So they were plus 60 during the regular season, which is nothing to scoff at. They were great. Offensively, with their point and goal scoring leaders, Eichel led the team with 94 points, first ever Vegas player to hit 90 plus points, hitting 94. Stone had 67 and Hurdle had 61. Goal scoring wise, Dorofiev had 35, Hurdle had 32, and Eichel had 28. So goal scoring wise, not overly bad. A couple of guys hit 30. You probably want to see 1 or 2 guys hit 40 plus, but still not overly bad. They finally got a player to hit 90 plus points. You want to see a couple more guys hit 70 or 80 plus, but still, once again, nothing to scoff at. They wound up making the playoffs, playing the first wildcard team, which was the Minnesota Wild, who they would win the first game, lose the next 2, and then win the last 3 to win the series in 6 games and advance to round 2. But in round 2, they would lose the first and last 2 games of the series and fell to the eventual Western Conference champs in the Edmonton Oilers in 5 games, losing to them for the first time in the postseason. So it's definitely a bitter end to the postseason run for the Vegas Golden Knights. Offensively in the postseason, Eichel and Stone were the 2 team leaders in points. Eichel with 10 points, Stone with 8. While Stone was the team leader with 4 goals, and Howden, Hurdle, Carlson, and Smith were tied for second on the team with 3. So once again, not a bad season there from Vegas, but it did come short, losing to Edmonton in 5 games in the postseason in round 2. So very interesting to note there. Next, going over to the team's offseason adds and subtractions from this past offseason. When it comes to their adds, they add Mitch Marner in a trade from Toronto, Cole Decisions in a trade from Nashville, add Cole Reinhardt from free agency from Ottawa, Jeremy Lauzon from Nashville in a trade, and Dylan Coughlin from free agency from Winnipeg, while they lost Nick Waugh in a trade to Toronto, Victor Olofsson, who's UFA, Tanner Pearson in free agency to Winnipeg, Nick Hague in a trade to Nashville, Dyson Mayo in free agency to Columbus, Ilya Samsonov, who's UFA, and a 2027 third round pick from the Vegas Golden Knights. So all in all, if you break all of that down, not overly bad. Like, they lost Waugh, they lost Olofsson, they lost Pearson. Those guys were all decent, top 9, top 12 forwards in the Vegas organization last year, but Decisions can easily replace guys like Waugh or Olofsson, or add some forward depth, and the addition of Marner trumps all of their losses. Like, adding a guy like Marner's talent in that top 6 just absolutely makes that Vegas Golden Knights team a whole bunch better. Defensively, they also lost Alex Pietrangelo due to injuries. That's not a subtraction, but they are going to have him not be on the team for this upcoming season. They lost Hague and Mayo. They acquired Lauzon Lauzon and Coughlin. Coughlin can easily be a really solid call-up option, 7-8 defenseman. Well, Lauzon's going to be a solid third-pair guy to help replace the loss of guys like Hague and Pietrangelo. So once again, it's not the best of moves on the blue line. They lost Ilya Samsonov. Akira Schmid, I probably think would be the backup this year for the Vegas Golden Knights. So once again, they did lose a couple of players. They do lose a little bit of depth on their team, but adding Marner to that team as well as a couple of other moves, not overly bad. And I definitely think Marner addition alone made this team a whole bunch better this offseason. So very interesting note there. This team made 2 trades this offseason. The first one was the Marner for Waugh swap between Toronto and Vegas, where they acquired Marner signing rights, signed to an extension, and moved Waugh to Toronto. They also moved Hague and a 2027 third-round pick of their own to Nashville for Sessions and Lauzon. So those are 2 trades that the Vegas Golden Knights made this offseason. If you go over to the top 3 picks this team had in this past year's draft, the first pick that they had in this draft was 55th overall, second rounder. Took right winger Joel Wozniak. Wozniak looks like a very fantastic, eventually top 6, maybe top 9 forward in the NHL. So that was a really solid pick up there for Vegas. Third round, 85th overall, they took Nobert, who's a center, and 6th round, 186th overall, they took Wiemeyer. So Wiemeyer and Nobert, I think eventually could be solid like 3rd, 4th line centers in due time. Wozniak, I do think is a really solid pickup there. So not too many bad pickups there for the Vegas Golden Knights. Next, going over to my offseason checklist from the offseason preview video. In the offseason preview video I did for the Vegas Golden Knights, I gave them a checklist of 5 things I thought they should do this offseason to improve for next year, and they actually are quite good. The first thing I said this team should do was to add a top 6 forward. Point in blank, Marner. Like, you add Marner, that's a top 6 forward added. That was the first thing that was on my checklist. It was the top priority for this team, and they did it. So that's really good for them. The second thing that this team should do is to move Nick Hague. They did that too. Instead of signing him to a long-term big money extension, they moved him to Nashville and at least got some pieces back, Incisions and Lauzon. So once again, not bad there as they got the second priority on my checklist. The third priority that was on my checklist was to sign Jack Eichel to a extension. So far that hasn't happened yet. Very likely chance it will happen at some point during training camp, but at this current point in time, Eichel has not been extended, so it's a really bad blow there for Vegas, but that was something that has not been crossed off my checklist yet. The fourth thing was to figure out who the backup will be this upcoming season. I think they have. The fact that they haven't signed or traded for any other goaltender leads me to believe they will probably have Akira Schmid be the backup this year, so instead of maybe signing one of the older veterans left on the market, or maybe trying to trade for or claim a guy off of waivers from other teams who are on the younger side, I think they probably will have Schmid be the backup. So they have, I think, figured out internally who the backup will be. And the fifth thing this team should do is to add some bottom 6 help. They did that to some extent. Like, they did lose a little bit of depth, losing Waugh, Olofsson, Pearson. So those were some bad blows to their forward group. But they did wind up signing guys like Sessions and Reinhardt. So all in all, I don't think they did overly bad, but I would have liked to see them add maybe 1 or 2 more bottom 6 forwards. So all in all, when you look at their 5 things on the checklist, 3 things they completely completed, 1 thing just to some extent they also completed, and they still haven't signed Eichel yet, so very interesting note there. Next, going over to my projected lineup for the Vegas Golden Knights for a 2025-2026 season. So at this current point in time, my projections are Barbashev, Eichel, Stone will be the Vegas Golden Knights top line, Dorofeev, Hurl, Marner will be the team's second line, Saad, Carlson, Smith will be the team's third line, and Howden, Sessions, and Kolesar will be the team's fourth line. Defensively, you'll have McNabb playing with Theodore, Hanifin playing with Whitecloud, Lauzon playing with Korzak, Hill and Schmid will be the 2 goaltenders, Schwind, Holtz, Hutton will be the 3 spares, and Pietrangelo will start the season on long-term injury reserve, and I think that would be a cap-compliant roster. So very interesting note there, like, you have Dorofeev playing with Marner, you have that top line which killed it at the beginning of last year, Saad, Carlson, Smith as your third line, like, that's lethal. So forward group wise, they're looking a lot better, and even though they lose Pietrangelo, the defense is still looking pretty sharp. So that's my current lineup projections for the Vegas Golden Knights for this upcoming season. Next, going over to my predictions for the Vegas Golden Knights, and I don't really have them doing much different than last year. I think this team, they added Marner, they got a tiny bit better offensively, maybe a tiny bit worse defensively with the loss of Pietrangelo and Hague, but still, I think this team looks extremely good. So I have them finishing with a record of 54, 23, and 5 for this upcoming season, 113 points, and remaining the best team in the Pacific Division, finishing first in the Pacific Division. So I don't have them being the best team in the West or the best team in the league. I don't have them winning the President's Trophy or anything, but I do think they're going to be another team who hits 110 points this year. They were one of 3 teams who did it last year. They're going to be another team who does it this year. They're going to continue to be the most dominant team in the Pacific Division, and I do think they're going to come away with with the division title this year again, and once again hit 50 plus wins. So that's my prediction for the Vegas Golden Knights at this point in time. And lastly, going over to my offseason grades for the Vegas Golden Knights. So the offseason wasn't overly bad. Like the Pietrangelo thing, they really couldn't predict. They didn't know it was going to be a season-ending injury, and that will be a bad blow to the defense. But if you look at their additions and subtractions, like I said, it hurts to lose Olsen, it hurts to lose Pearson, it hurts to lose a guy like Nick Waugh. Sure, you don't want to lose a guy like Nick Hague, but like you replace him with Lauzon, you replace Coughlin. Those are going to be some solid defensive adds. You also replace them with guys like Sijins, Reinhardt, some solid forward adds. And once again, like I said, you add Marner to a team that was lacking forward help. That's going to make your team a whole bunch better. So in my opinion, the Vegas Golden Knights deserve an A- for their offseason. I think they had a great offseason. I think if Pietrangelo was still healthy and they were able to find a way to free up some cap space and keep Pietrangelo as well as Marner, I think that will give them like an A or A+ rating, but I think A- is pretty indicative of the offseason they had. So that's my predictions for the Vegas Golden Knights for this current point. Next, going over to the San Jose Sharks. So when it comes to the San Jose Sharks, last year was an atrocious season for them. They did hit the 20-win mark, which is something they surprisingly weren't able to do the year prior, but it wasn't an overly better season than the year prior. They had a 20-15-12 record for 52 points, 8th in the Pacific, 16th in the West, and 32nd in the league. They were the dead last team because of, once again, lottery things. They wound up finishing with the 2nd overall pick instead of the 1st overall pick, but still, it was an awful season from the Sharks. They had bright spots, and some of the younger players did quite well, which has this team looking really well towards the future. But for last year, it was not a great team for the San Jose Sharks. They finished with 208 goals for last year, and they had 310 goals against. They were a minus 102 point team. That's awful for the San Jose Sharks. Like, that's completely and utterly disastrous for San Jose Sharks. Goals for, goals against wise last year. Goal scoring, point scoring leaders. Celebrini led the team with 63 points, followed by Eklund, who had 58, and Toffoli, who had 54. Goal scoring wise, Toffoli led the team with 30 goals. Celebrini was second with 25, and Will Smith was third with 18. So once again, Celebrini and Smith were rookies. So let's see Celebrini lead the team in points and have a 20+ goal season. Great stuff there for the San Jose Sharks rookie. Eklund had a really good season. Toffoli, showing his veteran presence, had a 30-goal season again. So once again, the Sharks team has a ways to go before they're amongst some of the better goal-scoring and point-scoring teams in the NHL. But for a team who was that bad last year, not overly bad stuff there. And once again, they missed the playoffs, so no playoff stats to go off of there for the San Jose Sharks. Next, going over to their additions and subtractions for this past season. So this is a long list, so get ready. So their additions, they've added Adam Gaudette from Ottawa in free agency, Kurashev from Chicago, Skinner from Edmonton, both in free agency as well, Lauzon in a trade from Colorado, Reeves in a trade from Toronto, Bowers in a trade from New Jersey, Klingberg in free agency from Edmonton, Orlov and Leddy in free agency from Carolina and St. Louis respectively, and Nedeljkovic in a trade from Pittsburgh. They lost Walker Duehr to Winnipeg, Klim Kostin to a UFA status, Noah Gregor to UFA status, Nikolai Kovalenko overseas, Thomas Borlow to New Jersey via trade, Daniil Gushchin to Colorado via trade, Henry Thrun to Toronto via trade, Jan Ruta and Alex Georgiev for both UFAs, and a 2028 third-round pick of the San Jose Sharks. So it's a long list offensively. They did lose some depth, like Borlow was a decent prospect. Gushchin had some solid stints at the NHL level. Kovalenko, Kostin, Gregor, Duehr, they weren't consistent NHL players, but decent like bottom six guys. So you lose all of those guys, but replace them with Lauzon, who's a pretty solid prospect, Reeves, who can be a solid, hard-hitting fourth-line guy, Shane Bowers, who could be a call-up option, and then Skinner, Kurashev, and Gaudette, who should probably all be top 9 forwards next year. I definitely think Skinner addition trumps all of their losses, and then they add Gaudette and Kurashev and a couple of other guys. Like, forward group-wise, I think this team got better. Defensively, they did lose Henry Thrun and Jan Ruta, who were decent defensemen last year, but they replaced them with John Klingberg, Dmitry Orlov, and Nick Leddy, who are veteran presence on their blue line that was pretty young, and I think will definitely help stabilize the blue line next year. So defensively, I think they did a lot better, and then they swapped Georgiev out and Nedeljkovic in, and I do think Nedeljkovic at this current point in time is probably a better backup for Askarov than Alex Georgiev. So all in all, I think addition-wise, this team got a lot better this past offseason. I think they're going to make a lot more noise next year. If you look at their trades, they made a handful of trades this past offseason. They traded Oskar Lauzon from the Colorado Avalanche in exchange for Daniil Gushchin. They got Ryan Reeves from Toronto in exchange for Henry Thrun. They got Shane Bowers from New Jersey in exchange for Thomas Bordeleau. And they got Alex Nedeljkovic from the Pittsburgh Penguins in exchange for a 2028 third-round pick. So just some swaps with a couple of other teams, but I do think they made pretty good deals on a couple of them. Their top 3 picks from this past year's draft were all top 35 picks. Their first one was second overall because of the draft lottery, as we just talked about. They took Misa, center left winger, one of the best players in this draft. He's going to be a solid stud top 6 forward going forward for the San Jose Sharks. The 30th overall pick was also the Sharks in the first round, and it took goalie Joshua Ravensburgen, who I think eventually is going to be a really solid pickup here for the San Jose Sharks. And the second round, 33rd overall, they took Wang, who's a left shot defenseman. Once again, they needed some more defensive prospects, and I do think eventually Wang is going to be a solid top 4 defenseman. So I think they hit him a lot of their draft selections that they had, and those were some pretty solid top 3 draft picks, all in the top 35 of this past year's draft. Next, going over to my offseason checklist during the offseason preview video. For the San Jose Sharks, I said 5 things that the Sharks should do in the offseason to get better for next year. First one was consider moving Mario Ferraro. The second one was figure out what to do with Vlasic and Couture. The third one was to give some of the younger guys more roles for next year. The fourth one was to add some much needed defensive help. And the fifth one was to sign or trade for 2 to 3 top 9 forwards. So the first one was consider moving Mario Ferraro. They did not do that. Ferraro is still on the team's roster. There's still some speculation out there if they're at some point before season starts or maybe closer to trade deadline, Ferraro could be moved, but at this point in time he has not. So one of my things on the checklist has not been completed yet. The second thing was to figure out what to do with Vlasic and Couture. They did that. Couture has officially announced he said career-ending injuries, so he's going to go on injury reserve for the foreseeable future. While Marc-Andre Vlasic was bought out of the final year of his contract this past offseason. So with those two guys now being figured out, that's something that was on the checklist that was completed by the San Jose Sharks. The third one was give some of their younger guys opportunities, such as guys like Quinn Musty, Sam Dickinson, Zach Ostapchuk, Thomas Bordeleau, etc. Now they did trade Bordeleau, but I do think that we'll have some of their younger players be able to compete for NHL lineup spots, like a Ostapchuk, like a Lund, like a Graf. I wouldn't be surprised if Misa challenged for a roster spot. Another guy would be Dickinson on the blue line or Miguel Doolin on the blue line. There's definitely a couple of options out there, but I think they completed that thing on the checklist. The fourth thing I said this team should do on the checklist was add some much needed defensive help. They did that. Added Leddy, added Orlov, add Klingberg. All 3 guys should be top 6 forwards this season. They could move a couple of those guys at the trade deadline, but I definitely do think adding those guys and allowing to have some of the younger players play with veterans like that makes a whole bunch of sense for the San Jose Sharks, and that was another thing on the checklist they completed. And the fifth thing was to sign or trade for 2 to 3 top 9 forwards. I believe they did that. Kurashev and Skinner, I think, are definitely going to be top 9 forwards. You might even be able to include a guy like Adam Gaudette to somewhat of an extent into that conversation as well. So that's another thing on the checklist they completed. So I had 5 things that this team needed to do. They completed 4 of them, and there's still a potentiality they could do a 5th one at some point later on if they move Ferraro. So very interesting note there. Next, going over to the lineup predictions I have for the Sharks for 2025-2026 season. So for the 2025-2026 season, as it sits right now, my top lineup for the San Jose Sharks will be Michael Misa playing on the top line with Macklin Celebrini and Tyler Toffoli. Second line will be William Eklund with Will Smith and Jeff Skinner. Third line will be Philip Kurashev with Alex Wenberg and Cameron Lund. And fourth line will be Graf with Gaudreau and Gaudette. And the defensive end, Ferraro and Logren will be the top pair. Dickinson and Leddy will be the second pair. And Orlov and Mukhamadullin will be a third pair. Askarov will be a starter. Nedeljkovic will be a backup. And Grunstrom, Dellandrea, Klingberg will be a spares with Couture starting the season on injury reserve. And I think that will be a cap compliant roster. So very interesting note there. But I think it's a pretty dang good roster there for the San Jose Sharks. Not any of the best in the NHL, but it's a lot better of a lineup than they had last year. Next, going over to my predictions for San Jose Sharks for this upcoming season. Now, I think this team got a lot better. Some of their problems were defense. They addressed that. Some of their problems were in goaltending. I think the Nedeljkovic addition addressed that. They do have some more forward depth now with the additions of guys like Skinner and Gaudette Gaudette, some of the younger players coming up. So all in all, I think the San Jose Sharks are in a pretty dang good position here to do a lot more damage than they did last year. I have the Sharks finishing with a record of 32, 39, and 11 for 75 points. Still one of the bottom dwellers in the league, don't get me wrong, but I have them finishing with 75 points, which would be 23 more points than they had last year. So I have them taking a major step forward. It's not going to be playoff level step forward, not even a record of 500 step forward, but it's going to be a lot closer to the 500 than they have been in the past couple of seasons. And I definitely think if they do a lot of things right, this team is going to be able to hit the 65 to 70, maybe even the 75 point plateau this upcoming season. So I have high hopes for the San Jose Sharks. The future is bright in the San Jose Sharks organization, and while I don't think they'll be a 500 team or a playoff team, I do think they'll be able to hit 75 points. And lastly, going over to their offseason grade for this past offseason. Now, I think this had a really solid offseason. They did lose a little bit of depth in the forward group, but I like the additions of Skinner and Gaudette and Kurashev. Defensively, massive improvements with getting guys like Orlov and Leddy and Klingberg. Goaltending wise, Nedeljkovic is going to be a big upgrade on Georgiev. So all in all, I'm going to give them as well a A- rating. Once again, I don't think they did great. I think adding maybe one more top six forward or maybe adding a couple of younger guys would have been enough for me to grade them a little bit higher, but I think an A- rating with how the San Jose Sharks did this past year. Great stuff there from the San Jose Sharks. So that's my opinion on the Sharks and the Golden Knights. I'd love your guys' thoughts. Do you expect a major step in the right direction from the San Jose Sharks this upcoming season? Does Vegas repeat as Pacific Division champs? And I'd love your guys' thoughts. Do you agree with me with those takes, or do you think otherwise? Definitely leave your thoughts on all of that down in the comment section below. That's all I'm going to talk for today. Remember to like this video. If you're listening, subscribe below. Thank you for all of your support. I would never be able to do this without all of you guys. So if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below. Don't forget to comment. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. Don't forget to stay tuned for more videos coming out in the very near future. I also do a blog talking about news, rumors, analysis, stuff like that. So remember to check that out. I'll link to that in the description below. Can't wait to see you guys all for the next video. See you guys soon.